This is professional companion Stacy Robertson. So essentially, how did you become a professional companion?
So I have a master's degree in counseling, and I'm 20 years as a child and family therapist. And I got really burnt out. And after 20 years of being in the industry, I was like, you know what? I need a break. Like, I'm too old for this. So I was trying to, initially, I came in as a cam girl into the adult industry. And because I could do my full-time job during the day, and then I would work at night, like from 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. to like 3 in the morning. And then, so after the first week of camming, I was like, I think I texted my friend, and I was like, I think I broke my vagina. And so I was like, you know what? I actually prefer, I really missed the in-person aspect of connecting with people. So I did about 6 months of research. I ordered a whole bunch of books on Amazon and read a lot of websites and articles before I stepped into the industry as a companion. And then, so after about 6 months or so of camming and doing a lot of research, I put up my first ad, and so that I could just kind of rest and recover from a long time of working in crisis and, pretty high intense cases as a therapist. So
a professional companion and escort, is that the same thing, or is that technically different?
I consider it to be the same thing. Yeah, I think that there's been kind of a move in the industry to move away from the term of escort because it has some negative connotations, perhaps. And also, professional companion really emphasizes more around the relationships that are developed and the connection that you have during, because that's really what a lot of people want. I would say people outside the industry tend to think that it's really all just about sex or kind of high-level prostitution, but it's actually not.
The elephant in the room question. Like, when you do this, are you having sex with people or not? Or it just depends? Or
yeah, so it really just depends. So ultimately, on the front end, it's always about my time. So a person will, connect with me to spend time with me, and that's ultimately what they're paying for is, my ability to connect and to make them feel, adored and appreciated. And in my kind of therapy worlds, I would say seen and heard, and my ability to be present with them. And then as consenting adults, if we choose to do something else with that time, then we can do that. And yes, that does happen.
But they're not specifically paying for that necessarily.
Correct. Yeah. And if anybody I don't typically attract those kind of clients anyways. And so, if someone kind of comes at me and that's what they want, or they're approaching me, in that way, I'm not your girl, because that's just not my primary role or function or what I enjoy out of the time together with people. So.
But do you feel more pressure? Like, okay, yeah, maybe I will do this, maybe I won't, but there is pressure there. Like, does the money involved make you make a decision that maybe you normally wouldn't make?
No, not for me. It doesn't. And I would say that generally speaking, yes, there is an underlying assumption that the possibility is there. When anyone sets an appointment, when I schedule an appointment, that's the underlying assumption is that we may, that door can be opened just depending on how the interaction goes. Someone may not be, they may find that they're totally not into me. And that's okay too. Or, they may have, other kinds of issues going on that it doesn't go down that route, but the door is definitely there for it to happen if we choose to.
Have you ever had somebody get, angry when it doesn't happen?
I have not. No, I've had very positive experiences with, gentlemen or clients in the industry. Very few. I know that it seems like it might be common to have a, more negative experience or people who are just kind of jerks but that's not the case. Most of the people I encounter are actually very, very cordial, very polite. A lot of them, are married and have families and they own businesses and, so they're not out there trying to, be mean to people typically.
Are they looking for sex, or are they really looking for just companionship?
I would say that they claim that they're looking for sex, but the reality is they're looking for connection. At least for me, in my sessions, I tend to be, as a therapist, I was what's called strengths-based and solution-focused, which works really well for the adult industry because it doesn't matter what someone looks like when they show up at my door. I'm going to find all the things that are just awesome about them and that I adore about them, and find ways to connect and to talk and to laugh and to giggle, and they are my number one priority in that hour. I make them feel like I don't have my attention anywhere else. And I enjoy that. And there's, to me, a therapeutic value in that as well, because it doesn't happen very often. Today's day and age, people are, their relationships are strained, they're struggling, they're, I don't know that people really take time to really be with one another. You
mentioned some of the men were married. Do the wives know? Do they not know? Or is this like, how do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, and that's a really, really good question, because I get asked that a lot, even so I choose to be open in my life. Stacy is my real name. I am transparent about what I do with my family members, my friends, my colleagues. Everyone knows. I don't go to the PTA and announce it, but if someone asks me, I'm gonna share with them and tell them. So I get asked that question quite a bit, and ultimately, what I believe a foundational truth for me is that people have a right to have their needs met. And if they're not having their needs met in their relationship, and I would say that's primarily, I think that people have the perception that, men who do this are just kind of jerks and they just want to, they're sex addicts and they just want to get off and that's all their focus, and they're just stepping out and, being an ass about it. But that's not actually the case. Most of the men that I know who do this, they're not getting any sex at home and haven't in months or years. And it's shocking to me. It's appalling to me. And there's times when I just want to shake wives and say, hey, please connect with and meet the needs of your husband. And maybe he's not either. There's obviously some dynamics that are happening in relationships that just are not working for people. So that's the place that I come from, is that ultimately he has a right to have his needs met. And if his needs are being met at home as sexual needs, he is going to find a way to meet them. That is how human nature is and works. And there's all kinds of avenues, for how to do that and how to meet those needs. Ideally, most of these men would love to have their needs met at home. They would prefer to be having sex with their wives than they would be with, me or somebody else. So and when I have an appointment, I actually hold that relationship kind of, and this might sound odd, but that's okay, because I'm an energetic practitioner as well. Studied Eastern and Western philosophies and all kinds of alternative medicine and all kinds of alternative things. So I create a space where I create space for their relationship to be there with us, and I kind of hold that in sacredness. And my hope is that anything that we do, in all of our talking and all of our interaction, that this gentleman goes out into the world a better person, that he feels happier, he feels more connected, that he might be more likely to connect with his family, with his wife, with, be nicer when he's driving on the road, so maybe it's Pollyanna in nature, the way that I view things, but that's really what's important to me. And I feel like, for the most part, the feedback that I get is that that's what happens, is that, someone is able to leave and feel just better about themselves. And I also just endorse not feeling shame and guilt about what you want and what you need. And a lot of people struggle with that still. They struggle with feeling validated that they have a right to have sexual desires. I feel like most men feel really guilty about that. And women don't understand. They don't understand maybe the nature of a man's brain, his body, his relationship with his penis, and they need to. And men struggle with vocalizing those things. So there's still a lot of room for us to grow in our culture around talking about sex and connecting with ourselves about sex. It's still a very taboo subject. Now, obviously, as a woman, I don't want to hurt anyone at all, and, if I have run into situations where I happen to have met or know in the community someone's, partner, which also humanizes the experience, it puts a name and a face to, this woman who's on the other side of this relationship, for perhaps a client. And so I just really practice not judging and allowing myself to feel difficult feelings around this doesn't feel very good. And I know that it wouldn't feel very good to her if she knew that. But I also recognize that there's a deeper issue in the relationship than just what's happening, at the surface. And so I still feel, valid in being able to say hey, there's something here that's broken and needs to be fixed. But it's not necessarily my industry, or my role in the industry, if that makes sense.
It does. So your first time that you did this, what was that like? Were you nervous? Did you know what to expect?
I was very, very nervous, and I actually, I'm really grateful that I just feel blessed because my actual first experience, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I actually put myself in danger. And so I look back at that and I'm like, oh my goodness, thank goodness that I was okay. And, so I met up with someone who hadn't given me a lot of information and, we were outside, it was late at night, and so it was really kind of awkward, and it was my spidey senses were kind of going off, but I just didn't know what I didn't know. And at the time, even though I'd done a lot of research, you still just think, well, I'm not sure exactly what to expect. And the safety aspect is certainly a big issue, and something that you want to, especially women in the industry, feel, a lot of them feel very unsafe because, we're meeting people who are strangers to us that we don't know. And we don't know, we're in personal proximity to them. So our bodies and our homes and our, whatever are kind of vulnerable, so to speak. So it was, it was a little nerve-wracking. And I would say the first probably year and a half that I was in the industry, I was really timid about it. And then this last almost year now, I just kind of said, you know what, I'm going to own this. I'm going to own my role. I'm going to own this is who I am and this is what I do. And I'm going to go with it. And when I did that, it made a huge difference.
Are you pretty highly sexual in the first place?
I did. Sorry for my squeaky chair. I would not have initially considered myself to be highly sexual, but I also think that if I'm comparing myself to people that are in the industry, I'm pretty girl next door. And on a funny note, kind of vanilla for someone who does have as much sexual experience as I do. Oh, I get some good laughs about that. But, overall, maybe compared to other women, or even if I compared myself to, previous versions of myself in my life, I certainly am more sexual now than I ever have been. But that's been a journey for about the last 9 years or so, pretty much after I turned 40, I just got really invested in connecting with my body, in understanding my body better, in understanding pleasure and how to have more pleasure. It's been a fun journey to learn how to do that. So,
how much do you charge? How much money can you make doing this?
Well, you can make a lot of money. I mean, my rate is I'm trying to think of what I'm at right now, $350 an hour. And so it just depends on how many, clients that you're able to see in a week or want to see. I don't tend to, I tend to err probably on less. So I might see 1 to 2 a day. And usually I just work Monday through Fridays, but sometimes I do evenings or weekends, just depending on the person.
So I guess here's the thing, like, what's the downside? What's the downside? Like, why aren't more people doing this?
Oh gosh, there's tons of downsides. I mean, I think that, so there's a huge amount of stigma that is associated, with this. There's legal issues that are associated with it that you have to be very mindful and very careful about. There's safety issues. I mean, as I say, I can vet someone, but the reality is every single day I'm willing to face rape, assault, murder, every single day that I open my door to someone. And for me to feel that passionate about what I do, that I'm willing to face those things, it really says something about the industry also and how important it is. The other downside is people get, there's people who have stalkers, there's people who lose their family members and friends because of it, because outside of the industry, it's really difficult for people to understand, the work that we do and the risks that we face and then judgment around, because there's a lot of kind of alternative lifestyle and fetishes that I'm now familiar with that I, wasn't familiar before coming into the industry. And, a lot of people have judgments about those things. So I would say that that's the primary reason that most people don't, they use a persona and a fake name and an alias and take all kinds of measures to protect themselves. I was mentored by someone else in the industry who she also uses her real name and she's very authentic. She's 10 years older than me. And it just mattered to me to be more congruent and authentic with who I am and transparent. And I'm willing to have those difficult conversations with people in my personal life. And so that's also, I just consider it to be a luxury as well, that I'm educated and articulate. And therefore I feel a sense of, really wanting to advocate for the industry or take a stand and say, hey, this isn't as bad as what people think that it is. And there's lots of us who are doing this, and we are, great and empowered women. Because I think that the view is that I've met some women that I tell you what, they are a force to be reckoned with in this industry. And it has been very empowering for me as a woman. I haven't encountered at all like kind of that idea around people thinking, oh, you're just being sex trafficked, or oh, you have daddy issues, or I don't find that to be true.
Is this legal?
No, it is not.
But is it even kind of legal in the sense like, all right, I'm not selling you drugs, I'm selling you this piece of paper and the drugs come free. Like, can you get it around it like that? Or is it basically like, no matter how you do this, it ain't legal?
Yeah. So, and that's a great concept or way to explain kind of what it is. Yeah. So it's basically, I'm selling you my time. You're paying to spend time with me. And if something else occurs, then great, that's a bonus. And that's kind of the workaround for, not considering it active prostitution. That you're not actually selling a particular sex act for money. So there's a lot of kind of, wording around that, and so that people, can stay legal.
There's not like undercover police trying to catch you or something like that.
Yes, there are.
Did you spot them out, or like, did you get arrested, or what happened?
No, it's just known in the industry. They set up stings. And I would say that's the primary way that they, try to catch people or arrest people, is through stings. Like, usually they're going to set something up for a high volume. But yeah, they're always looking for, that's the very first thing that I note, or that I, create awareness around when I'm talking with someone who's new, is, in the back of my mind, is this a police officer? And are there certain kinds of behaviors that they're doing that would lend me to think that maybe they are? So Yeah, it's a daily thought and occurrence that you worry about that happening.
Yeah, I guess I feel kind of, there's a difference, right? There's a difference between the person on the street and somebody like yourself. Like one I get,
Yes.
the other I don't quite get why somebody is. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like what you're doing should be illegal, or do you feel like it should be fine?
I think it should be decriminalized, for sure, because there's, I would say that the fact that it is illegal is around, there's just lots of stuff, right? It's a way to oppress a certain population. It's a way to control. It's a way to, generate more money. There's lots of things. And certainly people are worried about trafficking. And yes, no one wants someone who's underage or someone who is being coerced in the industry. Those are all bad things, or, bad from the standpoint of not healthy or helpful for someone. But the majority of people in the industry are not that, and they're not doing that, and not even anything close to that. And so, it's considered the oldest oldest profession in the world is prostitution. So, there's all of this stigma and all of these things, but yeah, the reality is also that sex is a very, very typically a very small portion of the interaction. I have people who, pay for overnight dates, and I might spend, 12 hours or 24 hours with them. And we're, going to concerts and going out to dinner and laughing and watching comedy. It's like we're spending 11 and a half hours hanging out and doing everything but sex. So there's so much more to it than, some blowjob in a back alley. So,
are you ready for the harder / listener submitted questions?
Sure.
Most interesting thing someone has asked you to do?
So I had a client who wanted me to dress up so I was in hose and heels and dress pants and a silk shirt as if I was going to the office. And they wanted me to lay on the bed with them and talk with them about how if I got really angry, I could overpower them, and that I would turn into the Hulk if I got really angry. And for 3 hours worth of talking.
Like specifically the Hulk?
Yeah, specifically that I would just turn into this Hulk and enraged, and not necessarily my clothes would rip off and I'd grow and get like the Hulk, but I could just be really mean, and I get really strong when I get angry, and I could hurt it.
Did you get it, or did you understand why they wanted this, or was it just like, okay?
No, yeah, and of course, the therapist in me is I love trying to understand human behavior and why people do what they do. So in the back of my mind, there were times that I'm like, what is going on here? And I've had other requests too, especially like foot fetishes and things like that. And I can't say, what I did get it with this particular person is that, they're, probably like an engineer in their profession, very type A. They were in, higher up in management and things. And so a lot of times that will lend itself to someone who wants to be more submissive in the bedroom if they've been, very kind of in a powerful position outside. But at the same time, it was a very unique request. And so, yeah, I wasn't really sure why, but I was willing to try and see if that would make them happy. And it did.
Most you have made in a week?
Oh, let's see. Most I've made in a week? I've probably had a close to $5,000 week before.
That's pretty good money.
Yeah.
Is that now? Would that all be from one person, or is that just from?
No, yeah, from multiple. Like one time I had two, the week of Christmas, I think it was, I had 2 overnights that week, actually. And those are like $2,000, $2,500 a pop. So yeah, I probably made $7,000 that week.
Would anybody listening know any of your clients?
Okay, so that implies like if there's just regular random listeners, if I've had a client that would be noteworthy, right?
Yeah, like somebody that people would know who that person is.
Yes, at least locally. Yes.
Can you name the industry? Now I'm really curious. Let me ask.
No.
Okay, can I ask you this? Business or athletics related?
Both.
Ooh, what a mystery! What a mystery! Younger or older? Younger or older?
Usually, the couple people I'm thinking of, they're older. They're my age and older.
Okay, last question in
Which
this.
You might not know my name. Yeah.
Last question in this regard. If on a scale of like 1, they're just kind of famous, like maybe somebody has heard of them somewhere, someday, like in a town of 100 people, they're known. 10, like worldwide global celebrity. Where would you put them at in that list, from like least to most famous?
It'd be more. Let's see. So probably like a 5.
That's still pretty good. That's like a not really well watched Hollywood movie kind of famous.
Yeah, like a B actress.
Yeah, like a well-known B actress. That would be perfect.
Yeah. This
one's kind of, I guess it's a little bit of a different, but how do family and friends feel about it?
They actually, and that's where I just feel really, really blessed. My family and my friends have been just incredible, but I think too, they know me. And so I will tell you, this was kind of funny when I sat my mom down a couple years ago, and it was like, I don't know, it was around Mother's Day or my birthday or something like that in May. And I said, Mom, I've got something to tell you. And she said, okay. So I told her, and she just looked at me and I said, well, do you have anything to say? And she's like, at least you're not pregnant again. And that probably the context of that being funny is I have 8 children. So
yeah, that's
so that's all she had to say. Most of them just asked me, my kids, my sons are older, and I've got kids that are my daughter's turning 30, and then most of them are in their 20s and some teenagers. So they just ask, are you being safe? Are you safe? And I said, yeah, and that's about it. They're like, okay, cool. Are you happy? Yeah. All right. They're good.
It's such an interesting thing, right? Because you do what you do, and people would have a certain kind of a reaction to that. And then there's people who might be like a lawyer, and they've ripped off thousands of people, or you're the head of a company and we pollute the environment. And that's totally acceptable. But what you do, people are like, Yeah, it's an interesting...
Well, and I feel like I represent kind of breaking some molds around, yes, I have a master's degree and 20 years experience as a child and family therapist. And then, yes, I'm a mother of, I've given birth to 8 children. And then, yes, I do this. And so it's like, it's kind of mind blowing to people when they're, I can see them just look at me and try to take it all in. Like, you said, what? You do what? And that's the fun part. But I also think that that's the important part, is because, with everything that's going on in the world right now too, like we put people in these boxes and we stereotype them and we make assumptions about who they are and what they do. And the reality is that we're all humans, and, we all have mothers, and, we're all someone cares about us, regardless of our skin color and our religion and our profession. And it's like, let's get past some of that. It's about damn time.
Because of what you do for a living, can you find joy and like companionship outside of this, or does it make it more difficult to kind of have a real relationship?
Yeah, and this is what is actually exciting. So I love this question. My partner and I are actually going to create a podcast together. So yes, I am actually in a relationship and have been for, I don't know, probably about 6 months now. And it was someone who I met as a client. They were a client first. And it's a very interesting dynamic. And it certainly, as with any relationship, it takes work and it takes being transparent and a lot of communication. And I would say that there's a good chunk of people who are in the industry who are in relationships. But I feel like the perception outside of the industry is that women aren't in relationship, or that they don't, perhaps don't deserve a relationship, or people will say, well, who would date someone who, does what you do? And that's why, I'm going to be talking about that even a lot more, and just, some of the struggles that we have faced and how we've gotten through those things, and what kind of conversations that we have, from trust. And then, how do I keep things private also? So there's an element with my work, right, that, I'm not going to reveal everybody's personal information who's my clients. Like discretion and being discreet is a part of that process. But it works, and it works really well. I mean, I'm thrilled. I feel like I met my soulmates. Like, he's fucking awesome, and he loves what I do, and he's supportive, and in a lot of ways, and of course he understands that side of me. But also, we talk about how, when I go to work, I go to work. There's a kind of a uniform per se that I have. There's some mental and emotional things that I do to kind of go into the office, so to speak, which is how I approach it. And then there's my personal life. And so certainly some of those things might overlap, but him being now on the side of, he's not on the client side anymore. And I told him when we first started dating, I was like, you better put on your seatbelt, because now you're in my personal life, and now, you're going to see like the whole behind the scenes and who I am on the regular, on a regular basis, not just who I am for this hour of time that I have, with someone.